want to check in here and make sure that we still have people. Looks like it's good so far.
Okay.
So we are talking about transition. We'll start over.
Wow.
Talking about transition. We're talking about transition. Today is Trans Visibility Day. And while we are not talking about the transition from one gender to another, we are talking about transitioning through life and change through life. Life is consistent in change. And it's important that we honor changing in life and that we honor ourselves and we honor others. Okay. So I kept wondering why I didn't hear feedback on that earlier.
Hey,
You're with us. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're going to be doing
stuff happens.
a lot of editing later. Okay.
So yeah, we want to talk about transition and its relationship to trauma. I would imagine that transitions of any kind can be traumatic, and they can be traumatic for a lot of different reasons. Not the least of which is that you yourself aren't sure. You're unsure, you're unsettled, you're navigating the world with a new perspective, and in some cases even a new body, or whatever the case might be. I can speak to this personally, as I feel like I've been in perpetual transition since 2019. It's just like I said, it's very unsettling, and it's a trip. It's a real trip. And you can wake up from day to day not knowing who you are. And we've been talking about parts work and all this. Well, how about the day to day? I can even think of a Bible verse. I know that I do spiritual coaching, by the way, as well. Used to be a pastor, so I know all about it. Okay, don't come at me with your Bible knowledge. I probably know more than you do, most of you. But nevertheless, one of the things that the Apostle Paul said in his writings was that I knew a man. And it's universally accepted that he's speaking about himself and how he changes from glory to glory, as it were. He didn't use those words. Those are found in a different place. But the Apostle Paul, when giving a description of the man he was when he met Christ, was not the same man that he was when he penned this particular letter. And if we can have somebody that we've sainted in our culture, such as St. Paul, recognize I'm not the same. I've grown, I've transformed, and I'm transforming. See, the problem with transition that we have with transition is we don't like change. Okay, we don't care for change. I am the worst about accepting certain types of changes. You don't have to roll your eyes.
I didn't roll.
But yeah, I am. I don't like the furniture moved around, and my wife likes to move the furniture, just because it's sunny out today. Let's move the furniture. And I come in, I don't know where to sit. I don't know where to do anything because I'm shook because of that small of a change. It's the same furniture, it's just in different places now. Okay, and I think our parts actually act like that as well. They move around from time to time. I haven't seen that one in a minute. You know what I mean?
The sun comes in this window better this way at this time of year, so I'm gonna move this chair there.
There it is.
But that simple.
But yeah, I just feel like we are so averse to change that it makes it even harder to transition. Like we have that comfortable place where we like to be in the cut, like here, but your life is dictating that you be here. And that's not the same, and it's uncomfortable. So, like I said, since 2019, I've been going through all of these changes of mind. I was accustomed to changing my mind because I'm a forever learner, but the types of changes that I was making, my mouth was still trying to say things that I did not really subscribe to. There was a disconnect. Yes, there was a disconnection. And I'd say something and I'd be like, why did I say that? I don't believe that. or whatever, I don't feel like that. Why did I say that? Because that's what I've always said. That's how I've always, described myself or seen myself, or however you want to say that. It was a trip. It's a real trip. So whatever transition it is that you're making right now, understand that it's going to be uncomfortable. Okay, unless you're a superhero and your vibration is so in tune that you embody the Christ all the time, the Christ consciousness all the time, which
good luck.
Yeah. Really good luck. But not to say you shouldn't try, but good luck. You're going to be in positions where you are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What would you have to say about that, Ms.
Well, you brought up a Bible verse, and I remember it was precept upon precept.
Yes.
So I wanted to find that word, a general rule intended to regulate behavior or thought. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about precept upon precept and transition, you're changing your mind, you're changing your body, you're changing your soul. Every day, if you're living and breathing, you're doing this voluntarily, involuntarily, consciously, subconsciously. It's never not happening. And I also want to state that for me, I won't speak for you, but for me, I believe that life is not a thing that begins or ends so much as it is. Mm-hmm. I am because you are. Mm-hmm. And whether you believe in God, whether you believe in energy, whatever it is, life is, and life is ever transitioning. And life is traumatizing, transitioning is traumatizing, change is traumatizing. And the difference being, you can go through it and you can have resilience and you can be armed with the tools and you can know how to reconnect in that situation, or you can suffer from it. And far too many of us are finding ourselves suffering from it. And when we look back at the last, you said 2019 it's been really hard for it's been a huge wave of change and transition for you. We've all been in a pandemic, whether we believe in it or not. We've all experienced shutdown. We've all experienced masking up. We've all experienced different hygiene habits now. And that is all transition. Mm-hmm. We transitioned into a pandemic mode in order to hopefully get it under control, avoid more trauma than necessary. And then now we're in a space where we're kind of transitioning out of what's been this pandemic into a new world. We're never going to go back to what was before 2020. We're never going to go back to pre-pandemic times. But there are parts of us that are stuck back there. And there are parts of us that, going through the last 2 years through this pandemic, have come out on this other side of the transitioning traumatized. So if you find yourself feeling traumatized or suffering because of exponential transitioning, we invite you to join us for some coaching. And one of the things I want to talk about that we've not really spoken to a lot before, but as we're talking about transitioning and changes, one of the things that we offer that's unique to our company that you're not going to get just anywhere is that we offer coaching individually, as in me and a client, you and a client. And we also offer it tandem. So it can be one person and both of us sitting with you through this coaching process. It can be two of you and two of us. a couples thing. We have those in place because as you go through transition, you need a community.
And if I can add, one of the reasons why we offer the tandem coaching is because it adds another perspective, as well as a different energy. Coach Joy's energy is going to be more feminine than my energy on a usual basis. Usually, I do bend feminine energy when it comes to certain things, and she bends male energy when it comes to other things. So it's kind of a balancing act of where you're getting the best of both of those energy streams.
Yes. And also another benefit to doing tandem is that the shame factor is actually much more combated in that space. Sometimes it's easy to forget that, oh yeah, I'm in a safe space, I'm not being judged. Here, you're going to know that, like, we're going to be able to reassure, we're going to be able to see and respond. Even more so than just in a one-on-one session. So we love the one-on-one sessions. I personally enjoy. I've like had 3 back-to-back today, so I don't mind it at all. But I also really love building community.
Yeah,
and that is something that from our genesis as a couple has always been priority, is to build healthy and safe community. Because in community, when you have support, you're not going to suffer. It's when you're being judged and isolated and shamed that you're going to feel othered and you're going to feel unsupported, and then you're going to feel suffering. So encouraging everybody tonight that if you're listening, if you're tuning in, you're checking us out, you're curious about what we do.
Well, I just wanted to add to that because I made a post earlier in the group on the page about healing, and I borrowed this from our friend Athena Moberg. Oh, I'm sorry, her name is Peterson now. My apologies, Athena. Athena. Okay, my bad. Yeah, I should know that. So Athena posted a blurb here that says heal, period. So we don't have another generation of trauma passing itself off as culture. Now, last night we got into the edges of just this comment because we've got this camp over here that's talking about manning up or this, that, or the other. And we have this other camp that is accused of being too sensitive or whatever the case might be. And I think there's a lot of toxicity that is passed down to us in the name of culture. Okay. I can remember, I'm just going to pick on my own self and my own family for a minute. I was probably 4 years old. And one of my uncles, my grandmother on my father's side had a lot of brothers. And one of my great uncles was sitting on the porch while I was playing on the sidewalk in front of my grandmother's house. I fell down, skinned my knee, bleeding. It was a real fall. Okay. And there's blood just running down my leg. And what do? What do you think I did?
I would have run to an adult.
I didn't do that. I cried. I stood there, I cried, and I was limping and trying to get up the steps. And my uncle pointed to me saying, "Boy, get up here." So I get up on the porch and he sits me down next to him on the glider. I don't know, maybe some of the younger people don't know what a glider is, but it's a chair that sits on the porch that slides back and forth. It glides back and forth like this. It's very soothing, actually. And we're sitting on the glider. And he sits there and he's just like this with his hands in his lap next to me. His legs are spread out, you know, he's feeling comfortable. He's gliding me back and forth. And I'm just waiting for the there, you know, or a hug, or are you okay, or something. My attachment cry is in full display and there's nothing. And he just looks at me and he says, You alive? And I was like, yeah. He said, then don't be no punk. And quit crying. And I just sat there confused, confused, because I'm like, that shit hurt. You know what I'm saying? It was like, that hurt. I mean, I'm bleeding. I'm still bleeding. You haven't even stopped the bleeding in my knee. And you're sitting here telling me don't cry and be a punk. What? That's toxic. Okay, I got news for you. To tell a little boy that crying because he hurt himself is a punk move, whatever the hell that even means, to be honest with you. But we can't do that in the name of culture. Okay. And I will tell you, this guy walked it like he talked it. He was a tough guy. He was a real tough guy. Like, nobody messed with my uncle. But hey, that must have been lonely too. You know what I mean? I don't want that rap. I don't want that rap on me. You know, I can take care of my stuff just like any other man, but I'm not insensitive to the needs of others and the feelings that others have. And I really think that part of that community building is to start canceling toxic behaviors and systems in the name of culture. You know, there's a ton of damaging cultures that are just swirling around, just swirling around, keeping us off balance, keeping us from transitioning to the better versions of ourselves. Another one, if I may, is particularly regarding Black men. We don't do mental health care. That's ridiculous. Why not? Why not, guys? We have access now. Men, we have access. Okay. In the past, maybe that was the case because access wasn't there for us. Couldn't find, and if it did have access, you couldn't find a qualified Black person, okay, to go into therapy with, or to go into coaching with, or to go into healing with. For just the sheer numbers was everybody was white. Okay. And when I tell you that matters, it matters. It matters. Okay. Believe me. All right. We were talking about earlier in the shower how we were talking about earlier in
we're married, we shower together, whatever.
She insists. But we were talking about earlier in the shower, it's like there's no two perspectives that are alike.
Right.
Okay. And you can't experience something the same way that I experience it.
We can go through the same experience together.
Yeah, but it's not the same.
We see this a lot in survivors of childhood trauma with siblings.
Oh, particularly you.
Yeah.
Wow. You were my first introduction to that. Yeah.
It is not uncommon. And if you are a trauma survivor, listen to this. If you are a childhood trauma survivor who has siblings, hear me. It is not abnormal for you to have gone through your childhood, experienced trauma, come out the other side, and hear from your siblings, no, that's not what happened.
And there's a number of reasons for that.
There's a number of reasons for that. It's possible they didn't. It's possible that they did and they're in denial. It's possible that they have taken on some of the attributes and characteristics of your household abusers. And are perpetuating that cycle further because they're not ready for healing. They're not ready to face it. And so I want to affirm for anybody who might be listening tonight who says, I'm a child survivor of trauma. I'm an adult now, and I feel like I'm the only one in my family who had this hellacious experience. And I want to say to you, you might be the only one in your family courageous enough, curious enough, and compassionate enough to have gone through it and speak your truth in your family. But there's a whole collective of us out here, and we want to welcome you to transitioning into our community and out of the toxic one that you may find yourself in at this time. So with that, I've been doing a little bit of sharing and checking in on our other social media platforms, but I want to invite people. I did this the other night. Let me do it again. If you're watching this now or later, feel free to text or call this number. Okay. Feel free to reach us. Give us your opinions, give us your feedback, give us your thoughts.
And I'm also watching the chat on YouTube.
Okay, yeah, get at us with the chat on YouTube. Yes, Rebecca. So Rebecca's one of ours. We adore her. She's totally in the community. And there are others that will be joining us throughout the night. We kind of set this up like post dinner for some of you and pre-dinner for some others. And so you'll be
trying to find the sweet spot.
Right. Yeah. We're transitioning through time zones. So we had to get creative and flexible about that. As well as all the media platforms and everything now has a reason why you can't connect.
Yeah, there's a lot of barriers.
So we're figuring it out, but we are here as coaches. And I kind of want to break down to what we do as coaches, because it's easy to hear things like life coach, somatic coach, trauma recovery coach, and be like, I don't know what that means.
And your eyes just roll around in your head.
Right. Especially if when you think of coach, you think of sports. Okay. What does a coach do for you in sports? Do
you know?
Yes, a little.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
We keep it real here, guys. I'm sorry.
He's asking because I've literally never played a sport in my life. Never actually had a sport coach in my life. Most sporty thing I've probably ever done.
Sport.
Like that's what it sounds like. Like I could go.
Are you guys sporting? Go ahead,
you should hear us talk about basketball. Like how many minutes left? How many basketball minutes left? 3 basketball minutes. So that's 20 regulation minutes each.
Maybe.
Often.
It's on a scale.
So what does a sports coach do for you, Jimmy?
They prepare you, or they help you prepare yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, if they're a good coach. They teach you skills to be able to navigate the sport that you're playing that are within your capability set. Okay.
Within your skill set. Okay.
They hold you back sometimes. Okay, this is where it gets kind of dicey. They can hold you back because that's not your job on the team to do a certain thing. So they sometimes can keep you from filling out. Like I can use an example from the NBA. We're just talking about basketball. That's my jam. So in the NBA this year, a lot of younger guys have gotten a chance that wouldn't have unless the guy that was in front of them at their same position was not benched or hurt for an extended period of time. I can think of the Portland Trailblazers. Damian Lillard is hurt. He's their captain and team leader. He runs the point. He's the point guard, which means that he is in charge of the offense.
My eyes aren't glazing over.
Yeah. And there was a young guy behind him that we saw flashes from. It's like we remember watching this kid in college, Cameron Payne. Oh no, that's CP3's back up. My bad. But anyway, this kid that plays behind Dame is nice, and he's just like Dame, except a little taller. And he got a chance to show that. So that could change his whole career. That could change the arc of his whole career, that he was able to showcase himself as a team leader this year while the actual team leader was hurt. And the coach let him go. Gave him what he could do, is to say, okay, it's your team now, go. And he did that.
So getting back to the comparisons of sport coach versus somatic trauma recovery life coaches, it's a lot. How do you help your clients as a coach?
I help them find what they need, want, desire, etc., through conversation usually. And sometimes through somatic experiencing, and at other times through energy work. I'm also an energy healer. So as you know, sometimes I can just tell you where your dysfunction is in your body. And, it's up to you whether you want, me or us, me ability in me and the client to transmute that energy that is trapped.
Yes. So we help condition you. We help you practice. We help arm you with vernacular and strategy and the mentality.
Yeah.
The mentality of like, I've never had a sports coach, but I've had coaching, and when they can get to your, like, I do know who LeBron James is. Okay. And I say his name because he is a really great example of mentality over body. And he's got a body that he heavily invests in. He has one job to do with that body, and he is a master at it. But I promise you, especially at his age in the sport that he plays, what keeps him going more than even his heart is his mentality. And it takes good coaches, it takes great coaches to recognize where someone is in their desired space and where someone wants to be, and then what they can do to facilitate guiding them safely to where they want to be. So it is never on a coach to, in our work, it is never on us to say, you should. We make those statements and call each other out all the time. You should, you could, statements, because that's the finality that it's not fair and it's not equitable and it's truly not the rest of the story. So I hate to be so freaking absolute that we're like, you should. If you need that, find a therapist. They're out there.
And they'll tell you all kinds of things you should or should not do.
Right. As a trauma survivor myself, one thing I know, I am resourceful and I have a 100% survival rate with the way I live my life. Or I wouldn't be here right now. And that same truth is true for you.
And what we want to do is help you to not only survive, but pull you out of survival, help you pull yourself out of survival.
Resource yourself into thriving.
And living your best life from the inside out. Shameless plug.
So if you find yourself in this space of struggle, suffering, transitioning in spaces where you feel like you don't fit in, recognize too, this is one that's been hitting hard for a lot of folks right now because we've gotten used to and familiar with living in a pandemic and what that shutdown space looks like. And now it's like this idea of being social. It's like, how long till this happens again that I don't see you again? How long am I going to get to, is this it? Are we really releasing? There's like this disbelief. And it's traumatizing. It's traumatizing to think about what happens if we have to go back into a lockdown situation. A lot of us lost loved ones that in that situation and didn't get to say a goodbye that gave us closure. It just moved us forward in our pain. So I say that to just encourage you, like you're not alone. There's so many of us out here cheering for you now, cheering for you tomorrow. We already believe in your ability to resource yourself and find your way out of this space. And we're here as part of a community to encourage you, to guide you, to arm you with vernacular, psychoeducation, and exercises, especially in the somatic, because it doesn't matter what your faith is, what your chosen religion is, if you have any, everyone can connect with their body.
And we don't judge any of that.
And we don't judge any of that. We don't really care, actually. But we honor it. We honor where you are in your space. We honor that. And then we find with you what is going to help propel you forward from survival and into thriving. And that is a practice we are in every day, and we invite others to join us in. And that's my heart's cry. I love helping people. One of the things that I kept getting in trouble with as an animal behaviorist in a former life is that I never had the mentality of animals over people or animals because people suck.
Right.
And I have plenty of reason to know people suck, if we're being honest. I've survived people sucking at life. However, I've sucked at life. You've sucked at life.
Absolutely.
If you're watching this, you've probably sucked at life at some point. And the great news is that who you've been doesn't have to be who you are.
That's right.
And it doesn't have to be who you carry into tomorrow.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that really stuck out to me in that post that I made today on the page was, that we've always done it this way. This is the way we do it around here. This is the way we do it in this family. This is the way we do it in this church or social group or lodge or what do the girls do? Retreat or whatever. And it's like, no, you don't have to, but your best life is found. Yeah, your best life is found living in the moment and taking advantage of opportunities in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Your life can change in a moment. Okay. If you don't believe it, then just think about what we've been talking about all week as a nation. Okay. With everything that's going on in Europe and the Far East and other places on the globe, and even in our own towns and neighborhoods. I mean, we went to a city council meeting last night that was a very serious meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't get the result we were looking for, but hey, they know we're here.
Either.
No, not surprised, but they know we're here and we're not going away. But all that because somebody acted out in violence, and all we get is violence. Okay, I'm looking at Reddit earlier today, and I saw a post that I tweeted on Twitter about there was this African pastor that was standing at the altar with a bride, wiping the makeup off of her face. Because women in his church don't wear makeup, they're naturally adorned. Now, I'm not going to even start with this man's ridiculous theology. Okay, I said it was ridiculous, but my bad. But I mean, come on, who can't agree that that's ridiculous? Okay, and then to humiliate and violate this woman in the way that he did, not to mention her family, friends, and everybody that was there assembled to share in this would-be joyous occasion, is now a tragedy. And she has to look at this day for the rest of her life
with the embarrassment.
You want to talk about parts? I wonder what part came out of her to stand there and take that in the name of religion, in the name of God. You need a new God. if that's your God, you might want to consider something else.
Not limiting him.
And definitely not limiting him. Okay. Or her. Or they. All of that. Okay. Because if there's no room for an expression beyond yours, come on now. 7.8 billion different perspectives. Do you understand that? 7.8 billion individuals, many of whom are trying to be just like some other individual. You don't see the toxicity in that? When I think about the doors that were closed, we're talking about transition. So I'm gonna just get in my own business again. Okay. And, recently I was sharing with Coach Joy about how I'm sure that most of my life has been spent carrying out a vision for my life that does not belong to me. It was never mine. It was never mine. I'm writing that and have been for some time. But to really be able to voice that and say it out loud was very liberating for me. It was very liberating for me to be able to say, yeah, you know, I did this, I did that, I did this, I've been here, I've been there. And when I think about it, I didn't want any of that crap. The accolades as well. I mean, you know, not just the bad stuff or the misfortunes that happened along the way, but the good stuff too.
Let's back up for a moment.
Oh, you're gonna coach me now. Go ahead.
Let's talk about some of your we call them anchor traumas. So this is important to go back into our lives and think in where was that first time it bubbled up for us, and what form was it? Was it betrayal trauma? Was it religious trauma? Was it political trauma? Was it patriarchal trauma? Is this a systemic trauma? Is it a racial trauma? And when you think back to what you believe at this time and space of your recovery, your anchor trauma, could you tell us just what realm, scope, umbrella that would be in?
It was a familial death.
So
we've
that, okay,
talked about
so we've talked
this,
about
yeah.
that one. So
that's the
loss.
oldest trauma that I remember.
Okay.
Is a familial death.
Okay. And then as you move forward from there and you think about the response from others in your life to that trauma, to you in relation to that trauma, were those responses or reactions, one, and then did they perpetuate traumatizing you further, or did they comfort you at the time? And then as you move forward from there, one more thing, as you move forward from there, and you think about like how that shaped your life. And what I'm getting to is I want to talk about other things that we coach and why, because it's important to know that you're not just talking to two people who got some certifications because they took some classes on a weekend or a week or a semester or whatever it is. You're talking to two people who have lived experience and intimate knowledge of trauma and survival. And that is one of the reasons why we are equipped to do what we do. So all that to say, I've given you a lot to think about.
Quite.
How does that hit you? Where would you say you feel like the most healing is being called for at this time? And while you sit there and discuss and think about it, I guess I will tend to our dogs because, you know, why not? Life. Thank you. Bye. Would you like to go as well? Thank you. Bye. Appreciate you. Keep them. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, that's a tough question because there's always, you know, as I learned this past weekend, I had an experience with hypnosis. And
that's right.
Yeah. And it brought some things to the surface that I hadn't been willing to access prior. And that was, there's a lot of grief and sorrow present in my body. And, you know, working on transmuting, changing that energy into something more deep. But yeah, I think that was probably the beginnings of that feeling of loss and emptiness, because in actual fact, it had never been addressed. And if you don't know what we're talking about, you can go back and look at the live we did on the 23rd, I believe, of March, and I talk about that a little bit. But there was, it just left a hole. It just left a hole that really never got filled. And, you know, that's through psychotherapy and psychiatrists and psychologists and, you know, every method, prayer, you name it, all of it, none of it worked. None of it worked because none of it really addressed the mind, body, and spirit. They were trying to get access it through my mind, and it had already gotten itself lodged in my body. and in my subconscious. And at that point, I'm outside of the
Window.
I'm outside of the window of capacity, and nobody even notices. But they know that I don't behave right. You know, I don't do the things the way that I should, or in the right timing, or I don't say this right, or whatever. I'm disruptive, and I don't really like authority. Okay, and authority is a lie. Okay, we're getting.
So you still don't?
I do not. No, I don't recognize anyone's authority over me.
Okay.
Over my person, absolutely not. And why would I? And the way that I am living that out is not being heavy-handed with our son, to the point where I am trying to overthrow his sovereignty as a human being. Mm-hmm. And that was done to me over and over and over. I never gave in. But it was sure tried. And I'm sure that I'm not alone in that place. Okay. If I was, we wouldn't have any clients.
That's true. That's true. As you think about these things, you mentioned prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to call that piece out for anyone that might be listening that says, I've tried prayer, I've interceded, or it's been done on my behalf, and yet the results were not.
All of that.
Or whatever the results were rejected. That is called spiritual bypass.
Yeah.
It is a form of gaslighting. It is a behavior that a lot of faiths don't recognize they're participating in, mm-hmm. because they don't see a problem with patriarchal, colonial-based leadership. They don't see a problem with telling a person it's when we label people as sinners, we dehumanize them.
Yep.
Immediately. Like we create an immediate disconnection when I look at you and I say, you're a sinner. Mm-hmm. And when we do that,
adding saved by grace does nothing to improve that.
No, it doesn't. Because it still means you're garbage. You're garbage, but you're saved garbage. That's not comforting. That does not help. And sometimes our answers to prayer do not look like what we thought we were praying for. And people will shame you for that. People will say you didn't pray enough. People will say you didn't do this or that correctly. And I want to say to you, as someone who was born as the very answer to prayer that my own mom did not really want. And she carried with her, it was very evident in our relationship that she carried with her this shame for not wanting a child, but at the same time, shame for I prayed, I did all the right things, and I still ended up with what feels more like a burden than a blessing, because I'm not what she expected. I never acted the way she thought. I didn't fit into a mold. And I know that there are many children raised in a Christian home, in a faith-based home, in a loving home even, that without that attunement, without that respect for your sovereignty, and without the honoring of who you are as an individual in that space and what you choose to be your identity or how you choose to express, I can completely appreciate how there's a cognitive dissonance for you today about, do I even believe? And that's kind of where your journey led you, is that, and you don't have the suffering like I have the suffering. Like I know what it's like to be betrayed by my community, my church community, what it's like to have a predator chosen over me. I know what it's like to.
No, I don't feel like a survivor of religious trauma.
Yeah. However, we bring it up because it is something that we speak to as coaches often. And that is what is spiritual bypass? How do you know how, like Christianity in America feels like a narcissistic cult.
is.
And some of the most loving, beautiful people that I know are in it.
Absolutely.
And I don't pity them, and I don't shame them, and I don't judge them, because I know that their orientation to the world is such that this is a safe place as far as they can tell. And they believe that they are perpetuating not the cycle of toxicity, but rather the message of love.
Right.
And so I think to myself, who am I to judge that? Who am I to shame that? Who am I to discourage all attempts to show and express love and healing, just because it doesn't look like what I thought it would? Just because that change doesn't align with how I would change.
Yeah, and like you were saying, I mean, we both grew up with the church in the foreground. The church was the sun of our family systems.
Yeah.
However, I did not have the experience that you did with it.
And mine's a complex trauma layered with betrayal and
mine was none to speak of. I don't think if it wasn't for the church, I wouldn't be where I am now. So it was more of it helped me find me.
Yeah. And that's a powerful thing. Like that can be true. So can my truth. These truths can coexist.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And clearly don't do too hard on marriage, because we're here.
We're walking together.
We're walking together. We are in alignment with each other. Mm-hmm. And we also hold space for when one of us is growing and the other one is not so much. We've both been in that space in this marriage a few times. And sometimes it feels like
it's kind of a seesaw sometimes.
It does feel like that's and I'll notice and we'll notice it even with our son. And like sometimes we'll be like, we're solid. What's wrong with him? And he'll be going through it. And all that to say that like this is life, right? This is the cycle. This is the
life is a transition.
It is a transition. It is ebb, it is flow, it is peaks, it is valleys, it is
lesson after lesson after lesson.
It is precept upon precept. It is delicious, it is bitter, it smells delightful. It smells like I want to get out of that space.
It is experience.
It is. And so it's important along the way to remember that what you go through, what you carry, the burdens you carry, the things that you keep inside, the things that you express, the things that you share, the ways that you're vulnerable, they're all important and they are worthy of being honored. Okay. And that is what, if you hear nothing else from us tonight, we want to invite you to join us in a safe space where your fullness and all your parts and all your life, your struggles, your joys, all of it is celebrated and or honored safely in a space shared with the team at the Inside Out Experience. And so with that, let's talk about just a little bit your move into the somatics, because when I met you, the first thing that I was introduced to was a worship leader. And you were so much more than that, but I was introduced to you as a worship leader and a youth pastor. And we talk about in our restorative response system theory, we talk about how the response for the fight, you have fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And for fight in particular, we talk about that response versus reaction is rhythm. Right. We've shared in previous episodes about what ways you have employed rhythm. I bring it up now because I would like for our next somatic exercise as we close out this evening to be one where as we connect with our bodies and our souls, we can also honor that rhythm to any fight responses. So if you're hearing this tonight and you want to fight what we're saying, if you hear us tonight and you're holding back or you feel like you're feeling activated, maybe if you have an inner part, a fighter that is popping up for you right now, I would really like to invite you and encourage you to join us on this next exercise with your body. And I'll let you set that up. I'm going to address one more thing over here while you do so.
Okay. Well, I just want to say first off, when you experience just the least bit of emotional arousal from being triggered, it may be challenging to contain the energy of those emotions. And we've been talking about a lot of things that could be triggering to people. So I do want to give you an escape from that sensation. And this exercise will help keep you grounded by reestablishing a felt sense of containment within your own body. Okay. And again, this is stuff that, you know, I never really thought about before I got into somatic training, but yeah, it's pretty cool. So the first thing I want you to do, if you will, and if it feels right to you, is to take in and notice your overall present experience. And you'll see I'm soothing myself by rocking. I like rocking. That's my thing.
Mine is, I always hold my heart.
Yeah.
Or my thumbs.
Well, I do this and hold my thumb. Okay. Next thing I want you to do is take your right hand and place it in on the side of your chest in the armpit area. Okay. On the side of your chest. Just holding the side of your chest. Yes, you've got it right there. Okay. The next thing you should do is place your left hand on your right bicep, your shoulder, or your elbow, whatever feels better for you. Whichever feels better for you. Now I want you to take a moment to notice the feeling under your hands. What do you notice, Coach?
I noticed that my body is warm and my hands are cold.
That's cool. Okay. What about the sensation of the material under your hands? Is it rough? Is it smooth?
Right. Well, my sports bras under there, so there's
Is it scratchy?
textures. Yeah.
Okay. Do you experience a sense of containment from your hands and arms?
It feels a bit like a hug.
Okay. Is it pleasant?
It is pleasant.
Okay. Because a hug isn't pleasant for everybody. That's why I have to ask.
Well, when it's me and myself, it's pretty good.
Okay. Now notice how the rest of your body experiences this soothing and containing touch. What do you notice about the rest of your body? How do your legs feel about this?
Yeah, they want to cross. They want to hug too.
Okay, well then cross them. Okay, cross them. Leg crossing is self-soothing. Yeah.
It is. I do it a lot.
It's quite resourcing.
Mhm.
Okay. What do you notice about your waist or your feet? What do they feel like? How are their experiences?
Yeah, I noticed that I centered. So earlier I'm doing a lot of this. So I actually sat up better doing this.
Okay. So
And
you're more
then-
aware of your
Yeah,
body. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what do you notice about your overall experience?
Well, I'm comforted by the physical sensations.
Okay.
My brain is wondering, what are we doing next? It's all over the place and it wants to know what we're doing next and why.
You need to be present. Okay, so breathe. Nothing matters but right now. Breathe. One more. Breathe. Now, how do you feel about your overall experience in this moment?
Good. Much more relaxed.
Much more relaxed. Okay. Now, this is an exercise that you can do whenever you need to. Okay. It helps you with anxiety. It helps you with, what's the thing when you're, that's anxiety. Yeah.
Overstimulated.
Overstimulated. That's anxiety.
Your chaos.
Yeah.
When you're feeling chaos.
Yeah. Just stop, breathe, and embrace. And start noticing if you need to add a rock like I do. You need to add a sway like some others do. If you need to cross your legs also, There's no wrong way to do this or to soothe yourself. I feel good. I feel so good. I can stay like this. I don't know. You got to try it. I mean, if you haven't tried it, give it a try. Give it a try. And again, we like resets, and that's a good reset. That's a good reset.
Can we do one more that I've been excited about all day?
Go ahead.
I told you about before. And this one, I want to, I'm going to invite you. If it feels right to you, I'd love to invite you to practice self-compassion. And when you're in transition, it can feel isolating.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're hearing a lot of voices, even though it's just you in the space. So if you're watching, if you're sitting down, I invite you to bring your hands together like this. And we're actually going to go over our nose like this. But I want you to think about, maybe you've got all this chaos going on. Maybe there's a bunch of voices. Maybe your body is just not relaxing, whatever it is. And I want you to just show yourself some compassion. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to put our hand over our nose. And we're going to say our name.
This one could be, yeah.
This one is intense. So some of you may not want to do this one. It seems very simple. But as you close your eyes and you get into the rhythm of this, as you try this when you want to manifest something or when you want to speak to something. And so this is my favorite of the exercises, actually. So we put our hand over our nose and we're just thinking about things that maybe activate us or that we prefer. Maybe you're sitting in a space of chaos and you want peace. So you want to just envision what you want. Okay, put that in your mind. Let that circulate throughout your brain. And then you're going to put your hand over your face like this. And you're going to say your name. So it'll be joy. Yes. And it might start out as a whisper. That's okay. Joy. Yes. And take a deep breath. And exhale. Joy. Yes. Now you try.
Jimmy. Yes.
And you do that about 3 times. And you breathe as you do it. You envision what you want and feel excited about it. Taste it. Is it delicious? And whenever you feel some physical excitement or a peace, sometimes it comes in the form of peace, and then you release it. And on that exhale,
now, one more thing. I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
When you said your name and you heard your name, what did that experience feel like?
Immediate connection and presence.
Okay.
For me, my experience when I do this exercise is I'm envisioning whatever I'm envisioning. I am then present in that moment with it, and I'm solidifying it with my name.
So you've practiced this.
I have practiced this. So
what
this is what
some people, and I just want to make this clear because it's not going to be the same experience for everybody.
Correct.
But for some people, you may be feeling something else, depending on sometimes, like if I call myself PJ, that elicits a certain part.
Yeah.
If I call myself James, that elicits a certain part. If I call myself Jimmy, that is a different part that is called to the surface. So if you have nicknames or honey bun or whatever it is, they may all bring up different feelings.
Yeah,
so
such a good point.
Yeah, we need to be aware of that. So call out your name until it feels good. Change the name if you need to. Maybe you want to call yourself Annie or whatever. Our son is the best at this. He's He's known all over the place by different.
Oh yeah, we know how he feels about his friends by what name they call him
I just learned he calls himself Jesse sometimes. And that's funny, but it's like, okay, that's who you are today.
He's constantly transitioning, and we are constantly.
Jesse was kind of cool. I mean, from what I remember, so that's fine with me.
Yep.
I'm not calling him that, but
unless he asks you to.
Unless he asks me to. Unless he asks me to. I think we're done.
I think so too. I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, for participating if you participated, for observing if you have observed. It does take a different kind of strength and energy to just observe something, and even if you're not involved and participating. So whatever capacity with which you join us in this moment, nothing is by coincidence. That's right. You are here for a reason, and we already adore you. We are already cheering for you. And we are here to facilitate any transitions you want to go through in life with the help of a community and a village. So with that, I hope that you guys learned something today, that you felt encouraged, you felt loved on, and that you will take this and you will go and you will live your best life from the inside out.
Namaste.